Here in Belize, half of our country's people are under 18 years old. That population is made up of children like me, fortunate enough to be in school, getting an education. And it is made up of children who are out of school, on the streets, who for one reason or the other are not in the classroom. Hi, I'm Marlene Cuellar. Recently, I was lucky enough to take part in a historic election in Belize. An election where the candidates were not politicians, but instead were issues, specifically those involving children's rights.
I've got the right to voice my opinion. I'll be listened to respectfully. I've got the right to.
I am a member of the Children's Advisory Committee to UNICEF. We helped to organize Belize's first children's elections just months before our country held its own general elections. In 1990, 1 year after it was proposed, Belize signed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. In the 8 years since, UNICEF's programs in Belize have helped promote these rights and protect children's safety, education, and family life. This year, the small 7-member UNICEF staff in Belize took on the ambitious job of finding out from Belizean children just what rights we think are most important. Over 65,000 Belizean children are between the ages of 8 to under 18. Through a colorful, fun, and educational campaign, UNICEF reached out to these children. With the support of education officials, teachers, community groups, and the media, 62% of these children cast their ballots on election day. Any child between the ages of 8 to under 18 years could vote, whether they were in school or out of school. May 28, 1998 was the historic date, a day when 41,567 Belizean children cast their ballots, voting for which of 9 children's rights is the most important to them.
We've got the right to play with our friends. We've got eras that are just for us. We've got the right to a safe environment, free from violence and gangs and drugs.
First, UNICEF asked us, the 10 members of the Children's Advisory Committee, what we thought.
I think abuse is a very important issue. A lot of children are being abused in Belize and no one looks after them. No one sees that they're being taken care of afterwards.
Education, well, the right to go to school, that's very important for the children of Belize, because there are many children who are in Belize who haven't got the chance to go to school, who are on the street side. They have to work to sustain their family. So
I think the most important one to me is participation, like what we're doing here, because we're saying what we think about it. Our voices are being heard, and we learn from each other.
And what did I think?
Well, to me, the most important is the family. Because, I mean, everything starts off from your family. It's the way you're raised. It's a house you live in. It's what food you get, whether they send you to school. To me, everything stems from that. All if you have a loving family and a safe environment.
Also on the Children's Advisory Committee is Manuel Ash, who is a resident at the Princess Royal Youth Hostel of Belize. After we voiced our opinions, the next step was for us to go out and canvass our peers, ask our friends and neighbors what they thought was their most important right as children.
Number one, this is like what I get from children on the streets, no? Say, make the government plan a party for all of we children every weekend. That is like children that, needs a little activity, a little fun during the weekend, like when, they don't really go to school, but they're there on the streets asking people like $1, 25 cents or whatever, right? And I met one little boy who told me that that is what he thinks, right? When I told him that this election is coming up, and that's what he told me, that's very important to him, because like normally on the weekends he's lonely, has nothing to do other than getting into problems.
During the very active 3 months or so it took to organize the elections, UNICEF kept one major concern in mind: that all efforts be made to give out-of-school children the same opportunity to speak out and be heard like we, the children in school, would have. This would not have been possible without the wonderful support we received from the Ministry of Human Resources and 3 active community-based organizations who helped to spread the materials to out-of-school children, who spoke with them, and who managed specially placed booths on Election Day. The Belize Family Life Association, the BFLA, the National Organization for the Prevention of Child Abuse, NOPCA, and the YMCA. Together with the ministry's community development officers, they reached out, and of the votes cast on Election Day, almost 1,200 were by children who are not in school. The rest of the voting was done by students, and it is the support of the Ministry of Education, district education officers, and teachers who helped to make this happen. It was their enthusiasm which made the children's election the tremendous success it was. In fact, teachers were so enthusiastic that although children under 8 years could not vote, teacher Sakina of Sister Clara Mohammed School and her infant classes held their own creative and educational version of the election.
Here is saying, children should have the right to live in a home with a family who love them, treat them well. If you want to make sure they know you want to live in with your family who love you, you vote for this one. But if you are worried about the place that you live and you want to live in an area where your home is safe from drugs, safe from gangs, and safe from violence, then you would vote for this one.
Like teacher Sakina, me and my friends in the Children's Advisory Committee went all out to explain the 9 rights presented on the ballot sheet. Apart from the school and street talks and meetings, these 9 rights were colorfully advertised and promoted in posters, flyers, radio, and TV shows.
The Convention of the Rights of the Child was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1989 and came into force in Belize in 1990. Under the convention, a child is anyone below the age of 18.
May 28 is election day for Belizean youth. Which one right is the most important to you? If you are between the ages of 8 and 18, let your voice be heard. And the rights are: right to voice my opinion, right to rest and play, right to attend school, right to abstain from hard labor, right to a peaceful, loving home and family, right to an environment free from drugs, gangs, and violence, right that nobody hurts my body or my feelings, right to equal treatment, right to healthy food. Vote for one right. Ballot boxes will be at schools, institutions, and public places.
So be bright, know your right. It's your election. Make your selection. Raise your voice and just be heard. Do what's important right now. Yeah!
After talking to all the children, we received hundreds of opinions. So you can imagine that arriving at a reasonable number to place in the ballot sheet was no easy task. Here's how we arrived at 9. Together with the UNICEF staff, the Children's Advisory Committee grouped the results into categories.
When you spoke with the people that you met on the street or at the hostel, whatever, what were the other important issues that came up?
For example, abuse. That came up, I guess, from all of us. All of us had a problem, had someone who brought up abuse as being a right to be brought out. And I think this would be the one that a lot of people brought out because it's a problem that we have in Belize. And I know
another one that I got a lot was freedom of expression, because many children, they want to talk about their lives and explain to the adults what
the result of all the canvassing of opinions to arrive at the 9 rights was startling in that the types of rights children are crying out for are basic human rights: food, shelter, education, love, safety. These are basic rights Belizean children, all children, need and want. It was UNICEF's job to spread the word. This involved regular meetings with the media and weeks of newspaper, radio, and television exposure. Talks and visits intensified in the final week leading up to the elections, like these radio call-in shows we hosted.
We're talking about the children's elections, the first ever, which comes up on Thursday, May 28th, where children from throughout the country, in school and out of school, will have the opportunity to vote on issues which concern them.
All the rights are important. They're very important. We can't categorize them in any way because my opinion might differ from yours.
So I don't only want to see the children inside the schools vote, but we want to see them outside of school to vote because they are as important as the ones in school. So we go around different areas of Belize, canvassing people, encouraging them to come out and vote, and we have different polling stations set up at different areas.
After we have tabulated the scores, we as the advisory committee to UNICEF will present it to all the political leaders and hope that that they will take action, make programs like to improve in the issue that is voted on.
The publicity included this motorcade through Principal Street the day before the elections.
Children, let your voices be heard. This is your election. Make your selection. Polling station area.
The excitement was high as UNICEF staff and volunteers went all out to meet the 4 objectives of Belize's children's elections. These were to create and promote awareness of the basic human rights of children as set out in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, to promote children's participation, to help prepare children for the real-life issue of voting in national elections by exposing them to the voting process, and to capture the attention of political leaders regarding the issues which the children consider to be the most important. One of the UNICEF organizers I worked closely with is Sandra Hall, their operations officer.
Right throughout the whole process of the actual election day, the children were so excited, and we felt that we had achieved our goal because they were aware that as children they had rights. The adults became aware, and they took the whole issue of voting very, very seriously. The out-of-school children, we were very excited about including them. When we saw the responses of the out-of-school children, it really touched us to know that here is a minority group who have been neglected and not given a chance to say exactly how they feel. Linking the out-of-school children to the children in school, we were happy to see that the issue of education was number one. Because what came out very strongly, that even though the children in school voted for this, they were not voting only for themselves, but for those out-of-school children who did not have the opportunity to be in school.
Finally, the big day came. On May 28th, thousands of children all over Belize made a historic mark in their understanding of the democratic process. And, just like thousands of adults do every 5 years in Belize, my friends and classmates and out-of-school colleagues marked their ballots, then dipped our finger in ink, exercising what is every human being's God-given right, the right to make decisions about issues that affect us most. 23% of the 41,567 children voted the most important right to be, the right to go to school regardless of my situation. This was the overwhelming choice of both students and those not in school.
I'm planning to vote for the right to go to school regardless of my situation. I'm voting for that because I think education is a must for every children, and it doesn't have to matter like what the children is or what situation they are. They still have to receive education because like this, there could be these children who could grow up to be a successful person who could change the community, but is kept off the street and is not receiving education. I think it is really unfair because because I think the main reason they aren't going to school is because they can't afford it, and that shouldn't be. If they can't afford school, they should at least, like, the government should get some kind of way that how the children could go to school, because, like, education is important for them. Well, first of all, I will tell them to imagine themselves in being in that child's situation, not being in school, not having anything to eat, and then I will ask them how will they feel, and I am sure that how they will feel very bad, and then maybe by that feeling they will try to enforce the right, and maybe build more schools for poor children.
The issue that won second place in the children's elections on rights was the right to a safe environment free from drugs, gangs, and violence. And, not surprisingly, although this was voted for second place nationally, it was the first choice of children voting in urban areas like Belize City and Corozal and Orange Walk districts.
I voted for the right to a safe environment free from gangs, drugs, and violence. I think that how we have a lot of violence and gangs in Belize, and I think that how we should control those.
The right to a safe environment for free from drugs, gangbanging, and violence.
And the issue that captured third place out of the 9 rights voted on was the right that nobody hurts my body or feelings.
I voted for the right that nobody hurts my body or my feeling, regardless if I'm young.
I learned today that we all as students could be able to speak out for our rights, for the betterment of this community. We all could say the different things that we want in our life, the different things we want to change, because many of us, we might be in an abusive family and other people do not know, and as this, we can say, like, we can speak out and say what we want to change, the different things we want to change in our lives.
With the focus on being as fair as possible in getting all children's input, YMCA, NAPCA, BFLA, and other volunteers who manage polling booths for out-of-school children also allowed them to submit other opinions on important rights for future consideration. It was a telling experience. Out-of-school children mentioned the following issues which were not on the ballot sheet: the right to be loved, the right to have a job, and for some out-of-school children, the right to hang out on the street side, just cooling out without, I quote, having any police or other people harassing us. The children's elections organized by UNICEF was an overwhelming success. It was a success not only because we, the children, got a chance to voice our opinions, but also because of the important lesson we learned about the voting process.
Richard Leslie, number 18.
For example, upper-level primary school students and high school students were engaged in the roles of polling clerks, presiding officers, and counting clerks. Social studies teacher Mr. Apollonio voiced his opinion about the educational process the experience provided.
This aspect of government, in terms of formulating government, elections, in fact, the third farmers who are doing this exercise right now know the different types of electoral systems. In conducting this, they learn the theory, now they are actually putting it into practice. I have worked at a polling station before, and I noticed that even grown-ups really don't know the process.
And for Rosemary Feith, UNICEF's country representative, the results of both the elections and the process of organizing and conducting the elections was a giant step forward.
I think that total involvement was one of the main spin-offs. We've been struggling for quite some time together with partners to raise awareness of children's rights. And I think in this one event has done more countrywide to spread that awareness than any of the other efforts we've made. From the very beginning, we had a wonderful relationship with the media. We involved them at the planning stage. The other area is how to really reach out to those children whose rights are the most compromised, which is children who have fallen out of the education system, children out on the streets. And we were really successful, I think more successful than we even ever anticipated in reaching out to those children through the help of the NGO community. And it's made a whole lot of new friends, a whole lot of new alliances.
The results of the children's elections were presented to political leaders. The timing was perfect. as Belize faced its 1998 general elections just months after the children had their say. The overriding consensus of politicians was that the elections are very useful to all policymakers since it puts children's rights in order of priority as seen by our children.
This children's election is useful to all policymakers because it puts these rights in order of priority as seen by our children.
We as the kids, we have a choice to see what we want for our country, what we can do to help. And with this, maybe the Prime Minister, the ones in politics can help us to see what is affecting our young youths today.
Enriching, educational, fun, and exciting. These are the words that describe the fascinating experience we, the children of Belize, were involved in. The first children's elections in Belize has given me an even deeper appreciation of how precious I am as a child and how important my rights are. We and the adults of Belize matured as a nation because of the children's elections. And if by the time I have grown up and I see that nothing much has been done about these children's rights, then who knows, you may just see me and some of my friends on the ballot sheet asking for your vote so that we may make these rights a reality.
We got the right to hard labor. I shall not work when it's time for school. I've got the right to an education. No matter my problems, I can learn to.
So be bright, know your right. It's your election. Make your selection. Raise your voice and just be heard.